Hello everyone. In this video, we are going to discuss the key points to know before you buy any property in India. NRI invest a lot in India, and it is important to understand certain key points before you buy any property in India from a regulations perspective. So, when we talk about the applicable laws in terms of buying any property, the first is income tax. Second is the FEMA regulations, and the third is the RBI permissions. If I talk about income tax, that is applicable only for the seller side and not for any buyer. So if you are buying any properties and then in India, then there is no income tax application implications. Second is FEMA regulations, and the third is RBI permissions. So that we'll talk about in a specific circumstances. So the first important point to understand is what are the modes of acquisition. So I have intentionally used the word acquisition because there are different modes of acquisition property. The first is purchase. So NRI OCI can purchase any immovable property from NRI OCI resident other than agriculture land, plantation land and farmhouse. So first mode of is purchase. Second is a gift. So NRI OCI can get gift of the property other than agricultural, plantation land, farmhouse from any NRI OCI resident who is a relative as per the Companies Act. So the person NRI OCI can get gift of the property provided the other person is a relative as per the Companies Act. And also there won't be any tax implications for the person for who's providing the gift, or the person who is getting the gift, because it is not taxable. The third mode of acquisition is inheritance. The NRI OCI can inherit any property including agricultural land and farmhouse from any other NRI OCI who has acquired such property as per the FEMA law. So in this situation, NRI can inherit the property from any other NRI OCI only who has acquired the property as per the FEMA law, or might be some RBI approval needed at that time. So according to the same, inheritance can be another form of acquisition. Another point is, are there any filing requirements? So when you buy any property in India as an NRI, there is no filing requirement with RBI. Is there any restriction on number of property? There is no restrictions. You can buy as many property as you want. Modes of payment. So modes of payment can be by way of inward remittance or from NRE or NRO account, but one cannot use traveler checks or foreign currency checks. Sometimes bank may not allow purchase of property by funds using directly from NRE, so you need to transfer your funds from NRE to NRO and then use that proceeds, but you cannot use traveler checks or foreign currency checks. One important point here is that once you become NRI, if you are a resident in India and you become NRI, and it is important, it is mandatory to convert your resident account to NRO account. Now what happens is, this is very critical point, that when you buy any property, suppose you have not converted your resident account to NRO account and you are buying property as an NRI and you are using money lying in your resident account, then and in that situation you might be caught for the violations of the FEMA regulation, where you need to mandatorily convert your resident account to your NRO account, and if that is if that is caught up, then there might be a penalty of 3 times of amount involved in the violation. Suppose you have a bank account, there are 10 lakhs, so there might be penalty for 30 lakhs rupees. So this is very critical, that once you become NRI, you should convert your resident account to NRO account. Resident can continue to hold property even after become NRI. Suppose I was a resident and I become NRI, I can continue to hold my property. There is no restrictions. Now, important point here is that suppose I was a resident and I was holding a agricultural property and I become NRI. So I can continue to hold the agricultural property even if I have become NRI, because I acquired the property when I was resident. But the issue is, when you sell that agricultural property as a NRI, you cannot sell to a resident. You can only sell that property to only to you can sell or give property only to a resident, not to a OCI or NRI, because OCI NRI is not allowed to acquire or purchase any agricultural property, plantation, land, or farmhouse. NRI OCI can repatriate the sales proceeds if they fulfill three conditions. Suppose you are buying property and you are selling the same, so you can repatriate the sale proceeds. The purchase of property may, as per the FEMA law, at the time of acquisition. For residential property, the repatriation is limited only to the extent of two properties, and you need a certificate of CA, because if you are repatriating the fund from NRO account, you need to get a certificate of CA that you have paid appropriate taxes on that amount, and then you can repatriate after getting the certifications. Now let's talk about the foreign national who is not citizen of India. A foreign national can buy a property in India if he is resident in India, stay in India more than 182 days. This is I am telling from a FEMA regulations perspective. So if he is a resident of India and is still and foreign national and resident of India, then he can acquire property. A foreign national requires RBI approval for selling a property to NRI OCI, but no approval requires sell to resident. So if as a foreign national want to sell property, he requires RBI approval, but for selling a property to NRI OCI, but no approval required if you are selling property to a resident. When foreign national is resident of India, LRS scheme applied that you can repatriate funds only to the extent of 1 million per financial year. So for the person who is a foreign national but resident, the liberalized remittance scheme would be applicable, in which under that scheme you can transfer funds outside India only USD 1 million per financial year. For any property, a second joint owner cannot be a foreign national. So suppose your spouse is a foreign national and you buy a property in India as a NRI, you are not allowed to buy a property because your owner is a foreign national. Now what happens is, if your spouse is a foreign national but she is available, suppose he or she is eligible to get an OCI card, then you are eligible to buy acquired property even if joint holder, provided marriage is registered for minimum 2 years period, payment to be made through inward remittance or NRE NRO account. Because in many cases you are a non-resident Indian NRI and your spouse is your spouse is a foreign national, but he or she is eligible to get OCI. In that case, you can buy a property, eligible for buying a property, however your marriage is registered in India and your payment to be done through inward remittance. Now these are the key aspects of buying a property in India. Hope you like this video, and we'll come back with the more videos on NRIs, tax, regulatory, investment, also from an education perspective, visa and many other important topics. Thank you.